spent in a miserable way.
U.S. News Analysis: Northam struggles to escape Virginia's troubled past and his owner Washingt. At pivotal moments, Virginia government, Ralph Northam but Northam knew his early successes, including a long-sought Medicaid expansion, have been a bright spot for Democrats who on Saturday found himself in a place no politician wants to be in 2019, explaining on national television how hard it was to remove shoe polish from his face after a dance routine. He said his extraordinary public appearance Saturday laid bare the tensions that have gripped the Commonwealth and the country since Friday afternoon, when a photograph from the governor's 1984 medical school yearbook page emerged showing people in blackface and Ku Klux Klan robes. After initially apologizing for his presence in the image, Northam reversed course on Saturday, saying he was not one of the costumed figures. Those denials, but Northam's deficit was offset by several admissions he made during his first extended remarks since the photo became public. Among them I had the shoes, I had a glove, and I used just a little bit of shoe polish to put under on my cheeks, and the reason I used a very little bit is because I don't know if anybody's ever tried that, but you cannot get shoe polish off, Northam told a crowd of reporters who listened in stunned silence at the governor's mansion. I actually won the contest because I had learned how to do the moonwalk, he added. Such statements, coming from an elected official committed to advancing racial equity, were in a sense characteristic of a state that has long been defined by unresolved tensions between its economically booming North and agrarian South, a Republican legislature and a Democratic governor, and, perhaps most importantly, between black and white. Built upon centuries of slavery and segregation, Virginia was home to the capital of the Confederacy and to a demonstration by white supremacists in Charlottesville that led to a deadly riot in 2017. It was also the first state to elect an African-American governor, UL Douglas Wilder, who held the seat now occupied by Northam from 1990 to 1994. Justin Fairfoot. Such contradictions are embodied in the strange circumstances surrounding Northam's racist yearbook page. Several of his the Ralph that I know will do something like that. He never showed any. Broadnax, a retired neurologist who is African American and now lives in Chesapeake, Virginia, after years practicing in Cincinnati, described Eastern Virginia Medical School in 1984 as a tolerant campus where he never detected overt racial bias from other students. That description was echoed by Tobin Adolph, who also graduated in 1984 and is now a gastroenterologist in Alexandria. Adolph said the offensive outfits on Northam's yearbook page would have been unacceptable at medical student social gatherings. Far from being if anything, EVMS was founded on humanistic principles to provide care to the underserved population in Tidewater, Adolph said. I never saw any. Adolph said that he did not know Northam well during their time at the school, but that his impression was of a nice guy, soft-spoken. Franklin Robert. Attention has turned to Northam's college years at Virginia Military Institute, in particular a yearbook that listed one of his nicknames as Kuma. Northam said that Benjamin B. McClellan, Northam's first-year college roommate, said he had never witnessed racist behavior by Northam or others at the MI. Obviously we were in Southern Virginia. I would imagine it was an anomaly is exactly how Northam described the picture Saturday, saying he did not submit it to the yearbook staff and believed it had been placed on his page by mistake. Pamela Kopilov, who is identified in the yearbook as its editor, did not respond to repeated calls for comment. Other yearbook staff, EVMS President Richard V. Homan said in it that the photograph on Northam's page was shockingly abhorrent and absolutely antithetical to the principles, morals and values we hold, and that he would be convening a meeting of school leaders to address the issue. It has been said that some experts said that the spectacle of students in blackface was not as surprising in 1980s Virginia as some might like to believe. Virginia and the South in the 1980s had barely moved beyond Jim Crow, said Julian Hayter, a historian who focuses on 20th century American history at the University of Richmond. Many people who were BMI did hire its first black professor until 1988 and the first black cadet did graduate until 1975, according to a 1999 article in the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education. The transition from white supremacy to a more integrated and multicultural population in formerly all-white institutions created anxiety for people unprepared for change, Hayter said. Before the rise of social media, people in primarily segregated institutions felt safe if they did these things in polite company that they did expect to become public, to be held accountable for, Hayter said. They a product of Northam, who grew up outside a town of fewer than 2,000 people on Virginia's rural eastern shore, alluded to the Commonwealth's use of repast in his remarks on Saturday. In the place and time when I grew up, many actions we rightfully recognize as abhorrent today were commonplace, he said, without providing further details. Northam also said that he had worked in recent years to better understand the perspective of African Americans. His 2000, the governor said the topic of blackface performances which originated with 19th century minstrel shows in which white performers would portray African Americans in demeaning ways came up, and he told Opoku Yebo about the Michael Jackson performance. I assume you probably would think that's offensive, Northam recalled saying. I would, Opoku Yebo replied. Northam recounted his response. I apologize for what I have done in the past and I can promise you I'll never do that again in the future. On Saturday, Northam again found himself apologetic, with little effect. As the evening wore on, state Democratic lawmakers called on him to resign. The state's for those who had admired Northam and expected much out of his next 3 years in office, it was a harrowing spectacle. A politician, read more.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.